We'll bring you a souvenir, my family mocked after emptying my savings for their Hawaii trip. I changed the locks. 1 year later, they stood at my door. I never thought my own family would steal from me, but that's exactly what happened. The betrayal burns in my chest even now as I write this, a hollow ache that flares with each memory. How do you reconcile the people who raised you becoming the ones who hurt you most? The question haunts me still. I'm Sarah, 29 years old and the invisible daughter, the responsible one, the one who's always been expected to sacrifice while watching others take. For years, I accepted this as my role in our family dynamic. I dimmed my light so others could shine. My sister Vanessa, 32, has always been the golden child, the sun our family orbits. Her dreams, her needs, her desires always prioritized above mine. Since childhood, this pattern was clear as crystal, though I tried desperately not to see it. When I was 10, my parents forgot my piano recital, the one I'd practiced for months. They were busy taking Vanessa shopping for a party she wanted to attend. I performed to an audience of strangers, searching empty seats for familiar faces that never appeared. Afterward, I sat on the school steps for 2 hours before they remembered to pick me up. No apologies, just Vanessa needed a new dress. My high school graduation, they left early because Vanessa had a minor headache. My college acceptance, overshadowed by Vanessa's breakup drama that same week. For years, this was our family's choreography, me stepping back, making room, understanding, always understanding. When Grandma Alina passed 3 years ago, she left me her house, a modest 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood. The only inheritance condition, my family could stay while getting back on their feet after my dad's business setback. I agreed without hesitation. That's what family does, right? Vanessa and her husband Marco moved in immediately. They took the master bedroom. My parents claimed the second largest room. I squeezed into the smallest space, grateful just to have my grandmother's home preserved in our family. What was supposed to be a temporary arrangement stretched endlessly. Months became years. I paid the mortgage, the utilities, the repairs. They contributed nothing, not money, not effort, not even basic gratitude. We're family, they'd say whenever I gently broached the subject of bills, as if that explained everything, as if family meant I should carry all burdens silently. Marco lost his job 8 months after moving in. He spent days playing video games while Vanessa worked part-time at a boutique, spending more than she earned. My parents enabled everything, cooking meals for them, doing their laundry, making excuses for their lack of contribution. I worked 2 jobs, my day position as an accountant and weekend shifts at a local cafe. Every extra dollar went toward preserving Grandma's house or into my savings. I'd been planning a trip to Bali for 3 years, a dream that kept me going through double shifts and endless family obligations. $5,000 saved. Dollar by dollar, tip by tip, early mornings and late nights. The trip represented everything I'd sacrificed for: a brief escape from responsibilities, a moment to breathe, to remember who I was beyond what I gave to others. My parents had helped me open my first savings account when I was 16. A joint account they'd insisted would help me learn financial responsibility. Years passed, and through absent-mindedness or perhaps misplaced trust, I never removed them as co-owners when I reached adulthood. It was the kind of oversight that seems insignificant until suddenly, catastrophically, it isn't. 2 weeks before my departure, my family called a meeting. The living room felt smaller that evening. Airless. My father cleared his throat, not quite meeting my eyes. My mother fidgeted with her wedding ring, a nervous habit. Vanessa and Marco sat closely together on the sofa, an unusual united front. "Sarah, sweetheart," my mother began, her voice syrupy sweet, the kind of tone that had always preceded disappointment in my life. "We need to discuss your trip." My stomach tightened, a premonition of loss. "We've decided to use your vacation money for our family trip to Hawaii instead," my father stated flatly. "Vanessa and Marco need a break after everything they've been through, and your mother and I haven't had a proper vacation in years." The room tilted, blood rushed in my ears, my carefully constructed world cracked at its foundation. "You, what?" My voice sounded distant, unfamiliar. "We transferred the money from your savings this morning," my mother continued, as if discussing something as trivial as dinner plans. "We're still on your account, remember? We knew you'd understand. Family comes first, after all." Vanessa leaned forward, not a hint of remorse on her face. We'll bring you a souvenir, and honestly, Sarah, it's not like you'd have anyone to go with anyway. The casual cruelty stole my breath. My pulse thrummed against my temples, each heartbeat a hammer strike of betrayal. You took my money without asking me? The words felt thick in my throat. My father waved dismissively. Don't be dramatic, it's just a vacation, you can save up again. Just a vacation. 3 years of extra shifts and sacrificed weekends reduced to just a vacation. We need you to house sit while we're gone, Marco added, already scrolling through his phone. Water the plants, check the mail, we'll be gone 2 weeks. They continued discussing flight details and excursions while I sat frozen, trying to process what had happened. Not just the money, but the breathtaking entitlement, the complete dismissal of my feelings, my work, my dreams. I nodded mutely, retreating to my room as their excited chatter about Hawaii continued. I sat on my bed, hands trembling against my knees, an unfamiliar heat building in my chest. For the first time in my life, I felt something beyond hurt and disappointment. Rage, pure, clarifying rage. They left 3 days later in a flurry of suitcases and expectations. Last-minute instructions about plants and mail, not one word about my money, not one acknowledgement of what they'd taken from me. My mother hugged me at the door. We're counting on you, sweetie, don't let us down. As if I ever had. The house fell silent after they left. I walked through empty rooms that had never truly felt like mine despite my name on the deed. My grandmother's house, my legal property, the realization struck me with unexpected force. This wasn't just my grandmother's house, it was my house, and they had all been taking advantage of me for years. I called in sick to both jobs the next day, something I'd never done before. Instead, I consulted with a lawyer about my rights as the property owner. I learned that my family members were technically tenants, even without a formal lease. But they were tenants who had never paid rent, who had contributed nothing to the household they'd inhabited for years. The lawyer confirmed what I already knew: I had every right to reclaim my space. I spent the next week in methodical preparation. I rented a storage unit, hired movers, purchased new locks. Each action strengthened my resolve, quieted the lifelong whisper that I should sacrifice for family harmony. The movers came on day 8. We carefully packed Vanessa and Marco's belongings: designer clothes, gaming consoles, the expensive juicer they'd used twice. My parents' possessions, photo albums, golf clubs, my mother's collection of ceramic angels. Everything labeled, inventoried, handled with care. I wasn't cruel, just resolved. When the last box was loaded, I stood in the empty bedrooms, breathing deeply. The house already felt different. Lighter, the spaces open with possibility. The locksmith arrived that afternoon. The satisfying click of new tumblers felt like freedom, the weight of the new keys in my palm solid and real. I spent the remaining days repainting walls, rearranging furniture, reclaiming space. I moved into the master bedroom, my bedroom now. I converted my parents' room into a home office. Vanessa and Marco's former space became a guest room no family member would ever use. I set up automatic payments for bills they'd never contributed to. I closed my old savings account and opened a new one at a different bank, one where no one but me had access. I researched rental rates in the neighborhood, making plans for future income. Each decision felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd surrendered long ago. When their return date arrived, I was ready. I watched from the window as the taxi pulled up. Their tanned, rested faces, the casual certainty with which they approached the house, my house. Vanessa tried her key first. Confusion crossed her face when it didn't work. She tried again, jiggling the handle. My father stepped forward, attempting his key with the same result. My mother rang the doorbell, peering through the front window. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. A boundary made physical. What's going on? Why did you change the locks? My father's voice held more annoyance than concern. Your belongings are in storage unit 274 at Secure Space Storage on Maple Street. I've paid for 3 months. Here's the key and access code. I handed him a sealed envelope, my voice steady despite the violent trembling in my chest. Vanessa pushed forward. What the hell, Sarah? Let us in, we live here. Not anymore. The words tasted like liberation. Marco's face darkened, a dangerous flush crawling up his neck. This is ridiculous. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern anymore. My mother's face crumpled in practiced distress. Sarah, darling, you can't be serious. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't take advantage for years. Family respects boundaries and contributions. Each word released years of unspoken truths. Is this about the vacation money? Don't be childish, my father scoffed. This is about everything. The money was just the final straw. Vanessa stepped closer, her voice dropping to the manipulative whisper she'd perfected since childhood. You would put your own sister out on the street after everything we've been through. You have options, you have jobs, savings, friends. You've had 3 years of free living while I carried all the financial burden. That ends today. Marco suddenly lunged forward, his shoulder ramming against the door I was holding partially closed. The impact jolted through me, wood biting into my shoulder. Pain blossomed, sharp and clarifying. You little ungrateful bitch, he snarled, pushing harder against the door. Let us in our fucking house. My heart hammered wildly. Fear and resolve tangled inside me. I braced my body against the door, one hand already holding my phone. I'm calling the police right now, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I have the right to refuse entry to my property. This is assault, Marco. Back away now. My finger hovered over the emergency call button, not a bluff. The line between fear and determination blurred, crystallizing into something stronger than both. Marco's eyes flicked to the phone, then back to my face. He must have seen the resolution there, the unfamiliar steel that had replaced my usual compliance. He stepped back, chest heaving with rage. You'll regret this, my father warned as they finally retreated toward their luggage. When you need your family, remember this moment. I watched them leave, feeling both hollow and full, shattered and remade, the contradictions of liberation. The next weeks brought a barrage of calls, texts, and emails, guilt trips wrapped in family obligation, threats of legal action, promises to change if only I'd reconsider. How could you do this to your own sister? After everything we've sacrificed for you, you've broken your mother's heart. Extended family got involved. Aunts called to lecture about family loyalty. Cousins sent messages expressing disappointment. No one asked my side of the story. No one questioned what had pushed me to such drastic action. I didn't respond to most messages. For those I did, I kept my replies brief and factual. When my father threatened legal action, I simply forwarded the communication to my lawyer. The threats quickly stopped. Vanessa and Marco moved in with a friend temporarily. My parents rented an apartment they complained they couldn't afford. Everyone positioned themselves as victims of my cruelty rather than consequences of their own actions. The hardest part wasn't their anger but my own programming, the deep-rooted belief that I was wrong for prioritizing myself. Nights when doubt crept in, whispering that real family would forgive, would sacrifice, would continue the patterns that had defined us. But with each passing day in my reclaimed space, those whispers grew fainter. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced true independence. No one's needs to prioritize above my own, no emotional labor to perform, no resources to share with those who never appreciated them. I redecorated slowly, intentionally, choosing colors and textures that pleased me alone. I cooked meals I enjoyed without considering others' preferences. I invited friends over without apologizing for my family's behavior, simple pleasures that had never been simple before. 6 months after changing the locks, I rented the guest room to Claire, a graduate student who paid rent on time and respected my space. The additional income allowed me to work just one job. I used my newfound time to take classes, pursue hobbies, build a life centered on my own well-being. Vanessa and Marco's situation deteriorated. They moved 4 times in 8 months. Marco still couldn't hold a job. Vanessa's boutique closed. My parents exhausted their retirement savings helping them while still paying rent they resented. The narrative they created never acknowledged their role in our fractured relationship. To them, I remained the villain, selfish and cruel. They couldn't see that I had merely stopped enabling a dynamic that harmed us all. 1 year after Hawaii, the messages shifted. Hints about financial struggles, mentions of housing insecurity, reminders that family should support each other in times of need. My mother called on my birthday, the first direct contact in months. Sarah, sweetie, we've been thinking this separation has gone on long enough. Your father and I are ready to move past all this unpleasantness. Translation, their resources had finally run dry. Vanessa and Marco are really struggling. They might lose their apartment next month. We were thinking, there's plenty of room in your house for everyone. My house, not Grandma's house anymore. Progress, I supposed. That won't be possible, I replied, my voice calm. I have a tenant now and I value my independence. But we're family, she insisted, the familiar refrain that had controlled me for so long. Yes, we are, and families should respect each other's boundaries and property. After everything we've done for you, that's exactly the problem, Mom. You believe you've done everything for me when in reality I've been the one supporting everyone else. The conversation ended without resolution. It was the last time we spoke directly. Vanessa showed up unannounced the following week. Thinner, less polished, the golden gleam tarnished by reality. She carried a gift bag, a peace offering or manipulation tactic, I couldn't tell which. I miss you, she said simply when I opened the door but didn't invite her in. The evening air hung between us, heavy with unspoken histories. My pulse quickened, the old response to her presence, the automatic reaching toward reconciliation, my body remembering patterns my mind had outgrown. I miss who we could have been to each other, I replied honestly, but I don't miss who we actually were. Can't we start over? We're sisters, that has to count for something. It counts for a lot, but not enough to return to patterns that hurt us both. Her eyes filled with tears, perfectly timed, expertly deployed, the performance that had always worked before. Please, Sarah, she whispered, voice breaking. Marco's been difficult since we lost the last apartment. Dad's health is declining from the stress. Mom cries every night. She reached for my hand, fingers trembling dramatically. I'm pregnant, Sarah, 6 weeks. I can't bring a baby into this chaos. We need stability. We need family. We need you. The confession hung in the air between us. Truth or manipulation, it didn't matter anymore. The revelation that should have changed everything changed nothing. My chest tightened, grief for what might have been. In another life, I would have been an aunt who welcomed this news with joy. In this one, I recognized the familiar pattern of emotional hostage-taking. Congratulations on your pregnancy, I said quietly. I hope it gives you the motivation to create stability for yourself. I can recommend some excellent resources for housing assistance and prenatal care. Her face hardened, the vulnerability vanishing like a mask removed. You really are heartless, aren't you? Your own flesh and blood, and you turn us away. I'm not turning away your child. I'm refusing to enable the patterns that would harm them just as they harmed us. Break the cycle, Vanessa, for your baby's sake, if not your own. She left the gift on the porch. I donated it unopened to a local charity. Some gifts carry too high a price. Today marks 13 months since I reclaimed my space, my boundaries, my worth. My family still believes I'll eventually relent. They don't understand that the person who would have given in no longer exists. She transformed the day they took her vacation money and expected gratitude in return. Sometimes at night, I still feel phantom guilt, the residue of conditioning that taught me my needs came last. But those moments grow rarer. In their place grows something new, pride in my boundaries, confidence in my decisions, peace in my solitude. I did book that trip to Bali eventually. I leave next month solo, but not alone. I carry with me the strength of choices that honored my worth. The journey that matters most wasn't across oceans, but from doormat to doorkeeper. Family should lift you higher, not use you as a stepping stone. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to close the door on patterns that diminish everyone involved, even when that means changing the locks.